I'm approaching 50 trips to the moon. I think it's like 240,000 miles to the moon. So it's 50 times to the moon. I'm going to hit 24 million miles probably in December. So I'm getting real close to a number that means I've traveled 1,000 times around the Earth at its circumference, 12,000 flights. I don't even want to find out how many Bacardis.
You are and will always be your most valuable asset. Welcome to the Me Inc. podcast, a series of conversations with individuals living happy, healthy, and engaged lives, while exploring the importance of emotional intelligence to thrive in this ever-changing world. My name is Nigel Franklin, a CPA, MBA, and a certified emotional intelligence coach. My mission and passion is to enable others to be that best version of themselves by understanding the importance of making investments in their physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. Let's start the show. Super excited for today's conversation. With me, I have the world's most frequent flyer, Mr. 23 million miles himself, Tom Stuker. Tom has flown over 23 million miles with United Airlines. That distance is equivalent to circling the globe more than 900 times, or flying to the moon and back about 50 times. His frequent flying has earned him celebrity status with United Airlines, and they often have celebrated his mileage milestones. For example, in 2012, when he reached 10 million miles, United named a Boeing 747 in his honor. Assuming an average speed 500 miles per hour, a rough estimate for commercial jets, traveling 23 million miles would require about 46,000 hours of flying time. And that would roughly equate to spending almost 5 years continuously in the air. The world knows Tom from a Washington Post article in June of this year that highlighted his extensive traveling. How do I know Tom? Tom is my neighbor, sometimes friend. Our friendship is one of the more meaningful one that I've cultivated in my adult life. We met in the pandemic. The pandemic for me was somewhat like Groundhog's Day. I had the same routine, exercise, and then get ready for work. I repeatedly saw Tom and we'd always smile. And then one day I finally decided to engage with him. But the way I choose to engage was, hey, buddy, if you want to call what you're doing exercise, you're going to have to walk a little bit faster. And we've been giving each other shit since then. We then started walking many mornings of the week. We'd go for a 2-hour walk together. Tom became the neighbor who would call and say, hey, I'm at Stop and Shop. Do you need anything? I passed by. I saw your garage door open. Do you need me to close it? When I started this podcast, one of the more differentiated things that I've experienced and from a friendship perspective in my adult life, he offered to fly to Ireland with me to tape the first episode in person with Andrew Codd. And his thinking was, wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't the energy be better to be there with someone face to face, launching this new endeavor than just doing it over Zoom? He's invited me to Bailey's Day in Australia. I heard the story when we walked, but I didn't expect to have an invite. I was busy with school. I told him I couldn't make it. And he insisted. He wanted to know, when will you get to travel first class to Australia again for free? So we were off to Australia. I'm super excited that he's here today to share his story, his life with the audience. Mr. Tom Stuker, welcome to the Me Inc. podcast.
Glad to be here.
Yeah? All right, Tom. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We've always had some really great banter. I've had a chance to walk and talk with you over the last couple of years, and there was something that I always would be able to take away from our conversation. But for this episode, I think is a little bit more important to hear about Tom Stuker, the man, rather than Tom Stuker, the flyer. Yes, and I'm sure everyone wants to hear a little bit more about all the stats about you traveling 23 million miles. But I think a good start would, let's just get to the Tom Stuker story. So who is Tom Stuker?
Actually, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, but I hope I figure that out before I get too old at 69. But I'm a simple person, born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, 7 kids in our family. I was the second oldest, but me and my youngest sister turned out to be some form of an entrepreneur and true salesperson.
A true salesperson.
I forever said there is no such thing as a born salesperson. Nobody inherently has a skill set that comes out of their mother's womb and say, just sign here, and how do you want to finance it? There's no born salesperson. Those are acquired skills. I don't even know if there's some genetic skill that goes along with it, but the rest of the people in my family couldn't close a door, so I know they're not salespeople. The thing about me is, I don't know, maybe it was growing up in a big family, and I happen to have a lot of time on my own where I early years thought about who I'm going to be. And I knew from day one, whenever that day one was, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I knew I was going to be an opportunist. I was going to be someone that found an opportunity and took advantage of it.
Tell me a little bit more about that. How far back? Give me the earliest memory of you having that clarity of what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Gosh, hey, maybe it starts off with my first Kool-Aid stand. I was small enough to not really understand that it was just a way for moms to get kids out of the house. It was a losing proposition for the moms. They had to spend all the money on the sugar and the cups and the Kool-Aid and cleaning everything up at the end. They were the financial backers of my first business, was that Kool-Aid stand. And I liked the idea that every penny I brought in was pure profit for me. Not a bad start to my entrepreneur days. I figured it out even as, I don't know, how old was I? 8 years old. I didn't know about location. We lived on a corner. We had great traffic. Everybody else in the neighborhood was selling their Kool-Aid for 5 cents a big glass, 3 cents for a small one. I wanted the traffic. I wanted people to look at my sign and stop. So I did 3 cents for a big one and 1 cent for a small glass. After all, remember, it's all profit anyway. So everybody would stop. And I remember my first customer. I had that muffin tray. That's where you're supposed to keep all the nickels and dimes and quarters. And it was empty because I didn't have a customer yet. First guy comes up. I don't know if he was appreciative of the 3 cents for a large glass, but he stopped. He got a large glass and he pulled out a dime. And he says, do you have any change? I said, no, you're my first customer. I don't have any change. And he felt sorry for me. He says, here, just keep the dime. And he's driving away. And all of a sudden I'm going, I don't like that idea about not having any change. So I put, okay, so I might be criminal for this, but I took the dime, I put it in my pocket, and I left that tray empty for the whole day. And everybody was my first customer. And at the end of the day, instead of selling large cups for 3 cents, I think I averaged about 8.5 cents a cup for that large one. I did pretty good.
Yeah. That's interesting. So going all the way back, you were navigating, looking at the landscape and seeing how you would find your way forward. But tell me a little bit more. So growing up in the suburbs of Illinois, of Chicago, that's right outside Chicago, right?
Yeah, out western suburbs. I went to Lyons Township High School. It's about maybe a 35, 40-minute drive outside of the loop if there's no traffic. I went through school. I don't know if I was part of any specific crowd. I had different crowds I hung around with. I was very flexible, but it was all about working and making money because I had no money. We weren't poor. We were the lower middle class, whatever. 9 of us in one house with 1.5 baths. But I was okay. I was happy, but I wasn't satisfied. That was actually one of my first mottos in life is always be happy, but never be satisfied. It really helps to have a positive approach, which meaning be happy. Most of my problems growing up were all, like many others, all first world problems. That was the biggest lesson I learned about first world problems. Don't compare to third world problems.
Right.
And that really changes your life when you start traveling.
I never connected the thought of you being a huge Cub fans to Chicago.
Oh, gosh, I've been living in New Jersey for over 20 years. I still have season tickets to the Cubs. I love my Cubs, the Sox, the Bulls, the Bears, the Hawks. I'm a Chicago person. Did have a run with the Bulls, and I have a once in a lifetime experience of a World Series with the Cubs. But I'm a Chicago person. That's where my heart is.
That's cool. What else about Tom?
So moving far ahead, next year, I'll be celebrating 50 years of marriage. I'm trying to throw the biggest party I've ever thrown in my life, but I'm having some difficulties. Difficulty is the first two wives don't want to come, right? But seriously,
I can't believe you did that.
Come on. Seriously, though, I'm on my third and final marriage to an angel from God, and this one's lasted the longest. It's 27 years. But I've got two grown sons that are out of the nest, way out of the nest, and I got a great granddaughter, not great granddaughter. I'm not that old. I have a good granddaughter. She's a beautiful girl, 8 years old in Chicagoland. I'm blessed with a great family and life because I've got so many doggone friends all around the world. My top 4 friends are literally from 4 different countries, and I wouldn't have met any of them unless I traveled.
We're going to get into the travels, but I want to talk more about Tom. You talked about the Kool-Aid stand, starting at that very young age, trying to find an edge. Fast forward, what were some of your earlier jobs and what were some of the things that led you onto the path career-wise?
Back in the Kool-Aid days, I really didn't know what I consider the 4 or 5 major principles of success.
But you were 8, right?
I was 8. I learned to develop the 4 principles of success in business later on, but didn't know that. So I did try unsuccessfully as I grew older and try to make a move into the business world. I failed twice before I was 21. And before I was 21, I was engaged to be married. Without 2 nickels to rub together after going broke in those 2 small, but moderate, but pretty exciting businesses potentially, but we could get into those a little later. But I was going to get married and I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And I had to get a real job with real benefits and a paycheck every week. And I love sales, so I figured, let's get into car sales. Everybody buys them, someone's going to sell them, and I think I'm a pretty good salesperson. Mm-hmm. And I was. I was salesman of the month, and I got a lot of those plaques, and I did good, and I was having fun, but the fun stopped. I didn't like the people I was working for. I loved the people I was working with, but I wasn't happy. So I said, okay, what's next in my life? I had one foot out the door, and a person from some training company came by and, in a nutshell, showed me 1 page of a script to call customers back to try to get repeat referral business. I could do a whole podcast on that one day, but in essence, it woke me up. I went from a person that hated the telephone to a person that just found the golden goose. I loved the telephone from that day, and I said to myself, and that was profound for me, that day I decided to be the best telephone person in the business, and I was. And I became that, and that's what built what became a global consultancy specializing in the car business.
So when you say best telephone person, what do you mean?
Okay, this all happened before you were born, Nigel. This is 1978, I think, when I got this profound moment.
Yeah.
The telephone, come on, back then there's no internet, there's no messaging, there's no emails. It's either the phone or smoke signals or whatever. That's about the only way you can engage with people.
Right.
So the telephone, again, okay, nobody that I knew of was teaching telephone skills, and the only skills they were trying to teach salespeople was cold calling, which I think is so ridiculously stupid. It's literally a shotgun approach instead of a target approach. And I hated it. I hate to do the 20 calls a day to customers. I just hated the phone. And if people aren't having fun, where's the motivation to continue or do a good job? But I found what I called a process that I developed, which called smart sales. I found this to be a very customer-friendly way to engage, where people would talk to you, open up, because the fundamental script I originally learned was just so fun to talk to and easy to engage. And when you can engage successfully with customers, that leads to sales potential. And it just meant a lot more sales, a lot more success, a lot more happier customers. It became fun for me. Still didn't like the car business at that time. Actually, I left the car business about 2 weeks later thinking I was as good as I could get, but I eventually found out I was as bad as I could get and didn't know the difference.
Oh, wow. That is you thought you were great, but it turns out that you were no good.
Yeah, I don't say no good. It's part of one of my first life lessons is that I thought I was at the top of the mountain in the car business because I was very successful. But I found out in life real quick, there is no mountain. There's no top of a mountain. That I wasn't on a mountain. I was just on a hill. Ironically, I built my business. I went out to train people how to make outbound calls. But the more I trained, the more I learned. My 4-page training manual became 268 pages eventually, where I was handling incoming calls, and I had to adjust to the times and talk about how to handle internet leads and interact with internet leads and text people properly. And I've always been about communicating with customers. And a lot of people take the car business, take about a lot of sales businesses like real estate and insurance. In the car business, 99% of the salespeople, they stand around waiting for someone to buy. What I do is I teach people how to sell cars, how to create needs, how to amplify needs, how to satisfy needs, how to have fun with customers. And another thing that really came to mind as I was moving forward, that I had to not only learn, but eventually teach people how to work intelligently. So many salespeople do not work intelligently. And that's a big passion of my life.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, and I'm just connecting the dots. So you're now global. And I remember again, and this always stands out to me, you said you traveled the world teaching people to be better.
Yeah. I can't say it was never about the money. I just happened to be in a position where my skill set was in front of the right people, and I got better and more valuable to people because of how I was able to help them. But the biggest thrill that I've ever got in my business is knowing that this person in front of me who's making $3,000 a month will eventually be a multi-millionaire. Yes, several people that I've been involved with. One of my top trainers, I met him and developed him when he's making $3,000 a month. And right now he's closing in on maybe being worth somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion. And a lot of my people have moved on to become multimillionaires, but it's not all about the money. I've been able to help people have fun at what they do because I gave them the confidence in their ability. The name of my workbook was always called Motivation Through Education, because I really believe that to be true. I think the real true way to motivate people is to educate them, empower them to have the skill set and confidence in their ability to succeed.
Oh, say that again. No, I'm just sitting with the part about you motivating people.
I always felt insulted when people said, "Oh, you're a motivator." I said, "No, I'm an educator." Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in it so much that I named my workbook Motivation Through Education because I'm 100% sure that the real motivation comes from education. When you educate people with the proper skill set and empower them to have those skills and the confidence to be able to go out of that room after my workshop and double, triple, quadruple your income, that's motivation. But it's through skill set. I've always made fun of all these motivators. You go away for a weekend and they make you work on hot coals. You're able to have the confidence to walk on hot coals or climb a tree without fear. But as a salesperson, Monday morning back at your business, you still suck at sales. You're really good at the fire walk. You have really tough feet now, but you still can't close anybody or handle objections.
So you said you failed in 2 businesses before you were 21. What was that, and what did you learn?
Yeah, thank God it was before 21, and the businesses were not tremendous financial losses, but I still lost, and that bothered me. One was an electronic business. I did sound systems, car stereos, electronic repairs. And then another one was eBay before eBay. There was no internet back then. And it was so expensive to advertise in newspapers, so I created something called Hand Me Down Hotline. That was a genius idea, so I thought. Instead of paying $30 for ad in a newspaper the weekend, I'd let them advertise for half that for a whole month with me. people call up and say, do you have any used refrigerators? Yeah, I got 3 of them right here. And people would place an ad and have it for a month. And it was a great idea, but it just didn't, like the other business, I didn't check off these 4 crucial boxes that I believe that are necessary for anybody to start a business.
You're really passionate. But what are you saying? What are those crucial boxes that you
I don't
check
think
off?
any bank's going to loan you money on passion, unfortunately. I always had passion. I got passion like crazy right now about everything I do. Even doing a podcast, I got passion. But those 4 crucial boxes, and pay attention to this, guys. It's the first box that you check off is, okay, you want to get in business. Do you have a product or service that enough people will spend enough money, right, to purchase, to provide you with enough profit to make a living doing this? That sounds simple, but let's get into the next one, a business plan. You say, okay, I believe, okay, passion's talking again, that I could sell this much and I could sell it for that much. Okay, you haven't really tested it, which is what you might want to do before you finally open the doors or create a business in your living room. But do you have a business plan? Are you taking into consideration that you're probably going to be operating with a loss for a while? Are you taking into consideration what your employees are going to be costing, what your costs are, what your taxes are, what your insurance is going to be? Have you taken into the stuff happens factors? So do you have a solid business plan that the banker would say, yes, I'll loan money on that? Okay, so you got a business plan. That's number 2. Now, number 3 is capitalization. Do you have enough money to withstand what could be a little bit of a loss, or maybe a lot of a loss, until you get up and going? So you have to be capitalized. Otherwise, that's going to get dry real quick and you're out of business forever. All right. And number 4, probably just as important or more important than the other 3. Do you have fundamental management skills? Do you know how to manage inventories? Do you know how to manage ordering the proper supplies at the proper price? Do you know how to manage your QuickBooks or whatever if you're doing a very slow 1-man or 2-man or 3-man or person show? So do you have management skills in hiring the correct people, not your friends or relatives, but hiring the correct people? Do you know how to manage people and discipline them and keep them focused? Do you have management skills?
So your business is on communicating and managing the customer experience. You're growing globally. So you grow from Chicago to globally. What are you learning? Or maybe we even start with, what are you teaching? What are those principles and concepts that you're teaching to your clients across the globe? What's the framework? What's the Tom Stuker framework to make car dealerships or people and businesses better?
When I knew for a fact that I had a giant successful company in front of me, it's because I learned the first fundamental of industries and businesses around the world, that it appears, especially when it comes to sales, for Pete's sake, that industries and especially most companies operate under what I call the theory of equal incompetence.
Oh, that's a good one. So I want to make sure you give me a little bit more on what the theory of equal incompetence is.
Okay, let's take the car business because they thrive under the theory of equal incompetence. It seems like all the dealers always make all the same mistakes, but they never get hurt because people have to buy a car somewhere. So a lot of businesses sometimes are successful in spite of themselves. They have terrible hiring. They do terrible job of training. They have terrible turnover. The managers are real managers of sales and not of processes or people. So that's through about 95% of the dealerships that I've worked with. And I've worked with about everybody. But it just the theory of equal incompetence, that they don't even know how bad they are because they still divide up all the sales a little more than the next guy because some person's more aggressive in advertising. But very few industries work intelligently. That was another thing that hit me over the head, saying, what if I taught dealerships how to work much more intelligently?
Okay. So theory of equal incompetence and then working intelligently. Anything else? What's in the toolkit?
Average person is not proactive in selling. A lot of dealerships, a lot of companies, it's not just the car business.
Right.
A lot of companies are not proactive in selling their goods and services. Most of them are reactive. They think it all gets down to advertising and throwing enough stuff against the wall to hope some of it sticks. Very few companies are really focused as much as they should be on client acquisition, client retention, how to build businesses from repeat and referral business. There's that part about working intelligently I'm talking about. If you take a look at opportunities for an average business, you have reactive opportunities and you have proactive opportunities. Reactive opportunities are the people that walk in your door or call you up or email you or text you or whatever. Those are reactive opportunities. And you really can't control how many of those you get. It's all based on advertising and reputation. But the proactive opportunities, you get a company that has 100,000 past customers, right? And they're all in their CRM. We call that customer relationship management software, right? So they have 100,000 customers, and it seems like 99% of their ad budget or customer acquisition is getting a person for the first time and not building relationships with the 100,000 and keeping the easiest people to sell. The proactive opportunities, which are your repeat customers, your referrals, and the people that you pick up through what I call new business. But those people are easier to sell. They take less time to sell, which time is money. They generally pay you a higher profit, and they're more satisfied. And isn't that what a company would dream of having, is customers that are easier to sell, take less time, give you more profit, and are happier with their experience? Yes, but companies seem to spend 95% of their efforts, money, and attention to developing the first-time client rather than the repeat referral business. So they're concentrating on the people that are harder to sell, close at a low ratio, give you less profit, and generally are unhappy more than the other people. So yes, that defines the theory of equal incompetence.
That is a longer portion of it. But I want to capture it because what's amazing about these conversations that I have as part of the podcast is that I'm learning from myself. And I must say, from our earlier conversation, and we'll get a little bit into that, it was quite interesting how you used emotional intelligence to do your sales even back then. And so if I got what you were sharing, it was that you should be proactive with your customer activity, right? You should be focused on client acquisition, maintaining and developing the relationship with your existing customers, because those are the ones who you already know will buy your product. They're easier to sell, they're profitable, and they're more satisfied. So that they're easy to sell because they bought the product. They're less to acquire because they're already in the pipeline.
You've already acquired them once.
And then they're profitable and they're also satisfied. And what you're sharing is that, and I think it's a reality, I'm just sitting back with some of the stuff from school and some of the stuff from just currently working, that 90% of our costs is actually spent on the wrong thing. That's what you were
it's not just cost. You're talking about time, effort, and everything. And where you, like I said, you go to a typical dealership and you'll see 10 people standing around waiting for you to come in and buy, where an intelligent salesperson
will be gone.
Doesn't waste his time, because time is money. In the 2 hours a salesperson wastes to talk to somebody walking in the door, I could have 3 appointments with past customers or referrals. And again, a past customer that comes into your place, they're there to buy. They're not there to shop.
I actually like that one. I missed on that one, the repeat and referral businesses that you should be cultivating. Okay. So one of the things, I remember when we were first walking and you told me you went through the script, or the car dealership script. Yeah. And I remember laughing out so loudly because you were showing how there are things and processes that are so deeply embedded. And we're using the car dealership example.
The skill set I'm talking about is applicable to everyone.
Okay. And that's what I wanted to say.
That over the years, it seems like I was never running out of car dealership customers, because they all, again, I think they invented the theory of equal incompetence.
Right. So I remember us having these conversations and laughing about it, because you would give an example of going into a dealership and how you showed or how you crossed over between how embedded certain processes are and the failure to rethink what it is that we're doing. I think in life, as in business, it's always important to examine what you're doing and ensure that it's giving you the optimal result. So I'll start with the question. You go into the car dealership and you're always asked, how much do you want to spend?
I spent my whole life studying word tracks, knowing that people respond to the exact question you ask them. When you ask somebody how much they want to spend, it's very unlikely they're going to say, how much can I spend?
Right.
They're probably going to say no more than I don't want to spend any more than this, or as little as possible. So that's a terrible way, probably not the best way to start a sales process. Mm-hmm. Just like when they go, where do you want to keep your payments? I'm not going to say, how high can I get them? I'm probably going to say as little as possible. Again, most sales, in my opinion, are virtually closed within the first 3 minutes of a conversation, because I've never met you before, and you're my impression of what a salesperson is. And if you give me a bad impression, I'm kind of leery about moving forward at this point. My way to greet a customer in that first 3 minutes, one of the things I would say is, folks, do you mind if I take notes? Your business is very important to me, and I want to get all the details correct so we can help you get exactly what you're looking for.
So Tom's actually in the process of writing a book, and in light of the recent, and accelerated now, in light of the recent additional coverage, it's something that's going to be coming soon. So plug for Tom's book in the future months. Maybe when the book comes out, you can come back and talk about what it is. But that's actually really amazing how you're actually framing this, that it is about relating, connecting, communicating to, I like the way that you shared before, or that predictive communication. People will respond to what you say to them.
Exactly.
So in that way, you just communicated that you're valuable to them. As a customer, you're valuable, and I'm going to treat you as such. But I know these are the things that you get paid to do your consulting talks and everything on. So let's not give all of it away for free. Yeah. And maybe we can actually start transitioning into what everyone's hearing so much about you for now. It's that whole place of you've flown 23 million miles on United. Do you know what the stats are, like statistically, before we go into any of the other stuff? If you looked at the YouTube video for your 20 million miler, you had been on a plane for 3.5 years or something like
24
that.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year, years of my life.
That is nuts, by the way.
Yeah, and I've added a couple million miles to that, so the numbers are just getting crazier. I guess you got to spend your life somewhere, so I happen to choose at around 30,000 feet.
Hey, it's Nigel. Quick favor, if you're appreciating the content so far, it would mean the world if you could follow, like, and share. It helps us to reach more folks like you. Now back to the conversation. Okay. All right. But let's just go back. What are the stats at 23 million miles? Anything that jumps out at you as how remarkable it is? So now you've probably been on a plane for more than 4 years of your life.
Yeah. I'm approaching 50 trips to the moon, because I think it's like 240,000 miles to the moon. So it's 50 times to the moon. I'm approaching in another million or so, and I'm going to hit 24 probably in December. So I'm getting real close to a number that means I've traveled 1,000 times around the Earth at its circumference, 12,000 flights. I don't even want to use a calculator to find out how many Bacardis, but
you are keeping the company alive and well.
Oh my
right?
God. I stopped drinking for a month, and I got a real ugly email saying my dad lost his job because of you.
I'm hoping that you don't get in trouble for that one. But you do drink a lot of Bacardi.
No, easy now. I'm not on a 12-step program.
Okay.
Mostly because when I get to the third step, I get pretty excited and go out and party. But no, I don't want to disrespect what is a serious problem.
Right.
So I don't want to make light of that. My own son's a recovering alcoholic, but he also appreciates my sense of humor. But I also have tremendous respect for his struggle. So a little levity, but probably quite a few airline meals.
So before we even go into it, am I going to get an invite to the 24 million?
Actually, you know what's funny?
A simple yes or no would help me.
Yes, I know, but I'll invite you, but United's going to want you to pay for that ticket. But yes, you are going to be invited. I'm going to tell you, it's probably going to be in December. It's probably going to be a flight that goes San Francisco to Chicago to Newark, so we could have 3 separate parties, to celebrate.
I don't feel confident that I'm going to get an invite.
All right.
But
At least I'll put you on the wait list.
I was there for 23, and for 23 it was interesting. I remember on the 4th leg, I remember standing in O'Hare and going, Tom, the jet lag is real. And then he got up, I went to the cockpit, and I just let them know that you were going to go past 23 million miles, to which the pilots were still surprised. And I went and I sat down in my seat, and I asked them to make the announcement because I was taping to make you that video. They said once they got up and they leveled out, they were going to make the announcement. But the problem was I got back, I sat down in my seat, and I passed out. So I woke up after.
Thanks for being there for me, buddy. Yeah.
This was the 3rd leg of that flight by that time. So I feel like I'm okay. So the legs of this flight was, we went from, on Sunday, we left Newark. We went from Newark to Chicago, Chicago to London, London to Chicago, Chicago back to London, and then London to Newark. We left at 11 a.m. on Sunday, and I got back at 6 p.m. on Tuesday evening and had to get up and go to work the next day. I was messed up for a couple of days. Man, how the hell do you manage the jet lag? How do you manage it?
Probably one of the most popular questions I asked, and I have the same answer. I haven't figured it out. I know there's all kinds. Go online, there's probably 20 different solutions. I sleep when I'm tired. I'm awake when I need to be. Sometimes it's really sucking it up. And thank God I have such inner passion that when I land in Australia and I'm really tired, I might have to put in 6 hours of work before I go back to bed. Now, I'll go back to bed and fall asleep at 7 o'clock, but I'll suck it up and give it 100% when I need to. When I get home, it's a whole different ballgame. I'm retired, and I'm on my wife's time when I'm home, and so I have to make the adjustments. So I'll sleep when she needs me to sleep, and I'm awake when she needs me to be awake.
At least we now know who the boss is.
We know who the boss is of Stuker and Company.
Okay, I've never really asked, but what is the story behind spending $500,000 for lifetime first-class passes?
Going back and forth to Australia. Fortunately, thank God, when I was flying in coach, it was only like a half full in the back, so we had plenty of room to stretch out, so that helped. But I've always liked first class. There's nothing wrong with that. And I was going back and forth to Dallas to do a TV show. It was not a network TV show. It was a satellite network to dealers around North America, pumped in there every day. And my producer says, hey, you know what, because it was filmed in Dallas, and he says, why don't you get this pass on American Airlines? And I said, what are you talking about, a pass? He goes, do you know for $290,000, you could fly anywhere that America flies in the entire world for the rest of your life, first class? I'm going, wow, that sounds fantastic. And I'm doing some number crunching over the next couple of days, and it starts looking really good. And then I went to United to check in on a flight a couple of days later. I said, I think you're going to lose me as a customer. And they said, why? I explained. They go, we have a pass too. I go, why do you keep it a secret? Why don't you tell anybody? The rep came to my office, gave me the pitch, $290,000. I did this. I ended up buying this pass for one reason. It was a business investment. It had nothing to do with leisure travel, because my kids are small and I spent a lot of time at home back then coaching Little League and all that stuff. So I wasn't bouncing around the world. I still had my kids. I did it for business because how expensive it is to fly first class back to Australia back then was very expensive. And going back and forth 12, 15 times a year, man, it didn't take long to write this off, literally. But I did it as a business investment, not a personal investment. And I'd probably never tell a lot of people this, but I was scared to death of flying back then. So for a guy that became the world's most frequent flyer, I started off being scared to fly. Now, granted, when you're flying first class, you can get over it a little easier. And someday I'll put a book in how to get over that type of stuff. But a business investment, and in no time ever until I hit 10 million. When I hit 10 million, and media was coming out of the woodwork to designate me the world's most traveled guy back then, I started getting the bug about becoming the number one flyer in the world. I found out there was somebody a million or two ahead of me back then. And we became good friends, but he's real friendly to me anymore because I passed him years ago.
You can keep your competition.
Yeah.
You guys who are traveling around the world, you can keep your competition to yourself. I'm sorry, but just so you had a TV show. And what you gloss over some things, but I want to talk about things that nobody else would probably get. You had a satellite TV show?
Well, I had a satellite TV show because somehow technology evolved to where they could have a studio, film shows in advance, and then send those shows out at pre-described times and time zones based on the different time zones in the country. And it was literally a dealer would stick a satellite dish up on his network, just like the dish systems now. But somehow, I don't know the technology completely, but it was on a K band, I think it was, and a broadcast specifically into subscribers that paid for this on a monthly basis. The show actually was a couple different shows. I happened to be like the king of the network, or the anchor of the network, you might say, to get a lot more subscriptions. I had a show called Objection Overruled. I had a specific show called The Stuker Show.
What's Objection Overruled?
Objection Overruled is basically showing people how to handle objections specifically in the car business.
Okay.
Yeah, I would do a show where I would call dealerships live as a customer, and it was live on the network. And the salesperson who answered the call would win money based on how many steps they did correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I had a show where I'd bring in the top salespeople around the country and interview them to help share their secrets. I had a real good time. I would go down to Dallas once a month for a whole day, film up to 10 different shows. When I would do 10 half-hour shows or 5 one-hour shows in a day, and then I'd head back. It was fun because the shows were all dated. I could be in October, and they said they're going to show this on the day after Super Bowl. So I'd start my show off with, hey, what a game last night, huh?
Yeah.
I said, I can't believe it turned out that way. My team didn't do too good.
It's funny, though, and I think when we taped the first episode of the podcast, that's when those old Showtime or those old experiences of yours showed up. It was like, so now I connect the dots because you were like almost sitting in that room producing, if you will. But okay, so those were the shows.
Well, that was my satellite show, not my network show.
Okay,
the network show was a lot, I don't know if it's more fun, but it was a different kind of fun.
Okay. And what was the difference between the network show and the satellite show?
I was paid good on both, but very good on both. But the network show, actually, it was a reality show. And there's nothing further than reality than a reality TV show. You know what? The networks eventually didn't call them reality shows because they weren't real, right?
Yeah, okay.
They called it unscripted series to avoid all the reality pushback. But because of my notoriety with United, there was a Nightline piece when I hit 10 million miles, and it was virtually everywhere. And after the Nightline piece went out, I got an email like 2 days later. I thought it was a prank. I thought it was a joke. We're interested in doing a TV show with you. I thought it was going to be about travel, which I would have had a lot of fun with. No, they wanted me to be a guy that goes in there, whips up the dealership. And so they bring me to Hollywood. I'm at the end of a long table, and they go, we're interested in doing a TV show about you working with dealerships. I said, okay, I'm interested. And they go, how do you feel about wearing a cowboy hat, right?
Yeah.
And I go, what? They go, we see your character as the new sheriff in town. I said, slow down a little bit. First of all, I live in New Jersey. There's not a cowboy hat within 500 miles. I said, but as far as wardrobe, let's hold off on the wardrobe. Let's talk money. If you pay me enough, I'll wear nothing but that cowboy hat. Oh, that was quite a meeting. I know what you're laughing about because you know me and you're trying to picture me in only a cowboy hat. And you're going, oh my God. Actually, that might have improved viewers. They're going, come here, you got to look at this.
And you know what? You're telling that story, and I'm sure you probably told the producers or whoever was sitting in the room, I'm sure you told them exactly what you just said.
I did. Of course I did. You know what? Why do I have to BS anybody? I don't need to. I don't need to apologize. Sometimes I'm going to have to, but no, it's
you.
You are. I am me. You know.
So give me cool things you have about flying. And you know what? I've traveled not as much as you've traveled, but to go all the way to Australia and to have the gate clerk said, I haven't seen you in a while, and everyone greets you in a very different way, or the lounge in London. What's the draw to you for traveling now? Especially if it was a business decision and not a personal one. What are you experiencing now?
I sure don't travel for the food, but the lounges. United has a thing called Players Lounge. So before you go on a business trip, they feed you really good with nice champagnes, nice wines, really good food. And so I don't have a purpose to really eat when I'm on a plane. The number one thing I really like about flying is the people I meet on the plane and the interaction I have with the flight crew. I love the flight crews. I've always said if the food was as good as the cruise, I'd be eating like a king.
Right.
Because the cruise, people say, oh, the flight attendant this or the flight attendant that. Yes, I know there are more situations than coach, but if you want respect, you got to give respect.
Mm-hmm.
If you want love, you got to give love. And it's a shame that I don't have problems with flight attendants. Okay, in 12,000 flights, I can name 5 attendants that probably woke up on the wrong side of bed. And I still say that they're not bad people because I don't know them that well. So I was on a flight with them, but maybe they had a really bad day. Maybe there was a health issue in the family. I don't want to say death or something, but maybe they've had a really bad day and they're struggling on the job. That's how life is for people when they go to work. Not everybody's happy camper when they go to work. And 5 people in 12,000 flights? I usually go on a plane and the first person I see, the first flight attendant I see, with the exception of the person that one time had my drink ready for me when I got on the plane. That kind of got everybody weirded behind me. But here, first person I meet on a plane, I'll say, how's your day? And if they say, it could be better, I go, I hope it does. It's going pretty good. I hope it stays that way.
When you did the Inside Edition interview last week, you wanted to engage the guy who was standing on the line just to talk to see where he was going. And I was there going to Sham, you just fly for United. You're not a United employee. So
part of me feels I'm somewhat of an ambassador because
I know you're an ambassador.
It takes such great care of me.
Yeah.
And it's great airlines.
But what I was going more so is the way of how you show up, where you want to drive positive experiences with the people that you interact with. Where did you get that? Because that is a skill. So I'm going back to not the 8-year-old Kool-Aid salesman, but what is that approach to the world where you try to manage or try to guide positive interactions with the people that you meet? What is that about?
My 23 million miles, it has nothing to do with the Taj Mahal. Someone's buried there. The Eiffel Tower is a big hunk of metal. The pyramid's a big bunch of stone. Grand Canyon, a hole in the ground. It's all about people. And by the time I'm done with my flights, I know my seatmates really good. Okay, am I a little nosy? Am I a little proactive or a little forward with people? I'm amazed by planet Earth. I'm amazed by the people that I meet from all walks of life. That's my favorite part of traveling is hearing everybody else's story besides mine.
Yeah. That's interesting. No, I'm not gonna touch on the food because I know you like the food, and that was
my problem is I like the food too much.
The seafood ratio on Copacabana.
Yes, thank God this isn't a video instead of an air thing, because I look so much better on a podcast.
Yeah, you look great on a podcast.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah.
But what was interesting was, and most of the times that we go, I watch, right, and I observe. That's just who I am. But you were still, when we were at Christ the Redeemer, you were still in such awe of Rio. Although you've traveled so much, you get to a place and you're still asking so many questions. You were still inquisitive. You were still curious. It was inspiring for me to see. Is that how you actually viewing this experience still? Because at some point, I've almost seen every place. What mindset do you carry from flight to flight, from destination to destination?
It's not just taking pictures and saying, oh, wow, look at this, look at this. I want to know more about this and this. Our guide did a great job. She did a fantastic job. And what I really like is learning things about the country that the average person doesn't know or even ask about. I remember, now the average listener's not going to believe this, but I went to Dubrovnik, right?
I don't even know where Dubrovnik is.
It's Croatia, I think,
okay,
right? All right. Now, I'm getting better at my geography, but I do remember Dubrovnik. It's way the hell over there after Italy.
Okay.
But I think it's Croatia. But so I find out in their country. Now listen to this, because this is one of my favorite tidbits about travel. This country, apparently, they're very religious, very Catholic, very religious there, but they spend a lot of their time watching Spanish soap operas. Okay. So their devotion to the Spanish soap operas combined with their religious, and they're strongly religious. Yes. When someone on a Spanish soap opera is really sick or dies, they go to church and light a candle for that person. That's a little strange.
All right.
And I'm going, I didn't want to make fun of her because maybe she came from church lighting the candles. I love to learn things about people, their own story, the experiences I've had dealing with merchants around the world that are trying to rip me off. Oh boy, I've learned a whole different way to play that game when people rip me off buying stuff around the world.
That's a tip that I would pay for. What is your favorite tip? How do you manage those merchants trying to rip you off as you go around the world?
I'm in Murano buying a really nice, beautiful custom tea set, whatever, and it was like $1,200.
I don't believe you buy a tea set, Tom.
Oh, that was wife number one. Okay. So she liked tea sets, right? And she did get the tea set along with just about everything else. All right. Okay. But anyway, okay. Hey, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And she got the crumbles of the cookies too. So I'm looking at this tea set. It's $1,200. First mistake, don't buy from the first place because a lot of the places you go to, everybody's got the same type of stuff. So shop around. So I bought this tea set for $1,200. I go down a block later and I could get the same tea set for $600. Now that pissed me off. So I went back to the first guy and I said, I want my money back. You overcharged me. He goes, all sales final. I go, no, not really. He goes, no, all sales final. And this is where I got a little tough. I said, let me tell you how this works, right? I'm not going anywhere for the whole day. And I'm a pretty good salesman. I could sell every single person coming up to your door to go down there. And I will. Now, he thought I was bluffing, but when he saw me walk the third customer away from his front door down to another place, he says, come in here. He gives me my money back. He says, I'll do this if you don't ever come to my store again or anywhere near it. I said, I think that's a fair deal.
Tom, best flight experience and worst flight experience.
Okay. Out of 12,000, probably a couple worst, couple best. But the one that sticks out of my head, obviously, is the last 747 that went from San Francisco to Honolulu. They were retiring 747s forever.
How long ago was that?
And I don't know. A couple thousand flights ago. But it was so much fun. If I had to guess, I'd say 5 years or 6 years or something like that. But first of all, they threw a heck of a party at the gate in San Francisco. A lot of flight attendants wore the old Hawaiian uniforms they wore back in the 70s and 80s. So a nice, fun party before we took off. When we got on board, and there was a lot of people like me that went on that flight just so they could be on that flight. It just didn't happen to coincidentally be on their vacation to Hawaii. A lot of people bought that because they wanted to be on that last 47 flight. So you had a lot of flying enthusiasts on that plane. When the flight took off, I'm talking about a 747. What is it, like 300 people on this thing? So when the seatbelt sign came off, the entire plane stood up for 5.5 hours. They only sat down for 10 minutes because their food tray came. They wanted to shovel that down and get back up and join the party. It was a 5.5 a happy hour. God knows how many Mai Tais they poured on that thing. Mm-hmm. And when they said we're landing soon, you had an entire plane booing because it was so much fun. Now, my least favorite, it's not my least favorite. I've had a couple moments where I felt the turbulence. I'm so used to turbulence. It's like a Disney ride. Put another quarter in there. Let's do it again. But I was on a flight once from Australia, and an older couple, if they were 90, I think these were the younger brothers and sisters of Moses. These people were old, but they came on the plane about 9:30 in the morning, trashed. They literally were trashed, all right? They had a little too much to drink. You could tell. And then before they took off, hey, they got a couple more glasses or whatever, right? And then when they're eating dinner, they're pouring some more down. I'm going, man, these people could hold it. I was tired. I went to bed. I woke up, I don't know how many hours later, and I thought I was in a science fiction movie. I had 3 flight attendants. I couldn't recognize them because they all had hazmat suits on. Yes, a flight attendant's wearing hazmat suits. Those 2 people sitting across the aisle from me, they launched right against that wall. They're projectiles or whatever you want to call it. I think you get the picture. But it was so bad, they had to wear hazmat suits. Now, I've seen people throw up on planes. I've never seen hazmat suits. Waking up to that, well, it was strange, but it was something to remember.
You spent more than $500,000 for these 2 passes. Would you do it again?
Nigel, that's a good question. If all I got out of the pass was 2 things. One, the ability to meet my wife in Honolulu about 27, 28 years ago. And the second one is joining up with one of my best friends in Australia to raise over $1 million for cancer, children's cancer charity. If those are the only 2 things, I'd do it all over again in 2 seconds.
Do you mind sharing a little bit more about the charity?
One of my best friends, Patrick Tessier in Australia, I've known him for 25 years. And when his son was 2 years old, Bailey, he developed brain cancer. And geez, you can only imagine what a parent goes through when you have a 2-year-old child or any child at any age going through terminal cancer. Bailey died at 2 years old. And ever since then, once a year, there's a charity. It's online, even though it's Australia. It's called Bailey's Day. And I invite everybody to get involved. So what happened over the years, I tried to get more and more involved. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, wait a minute, why don't we take my pass? Because my pass it's for me and a companion. I said, why don't we auction off trips where I could take somebody from Australia, bring them to the States, and then pick them up in the States when they want to go back to Australia and bring them back to Australia. So we started doing a couple of them. And then over the years, last year, we aimed for 10 auctions, and we got 13 different people bidding about $12,500. We got about, $150,000 last year. And we're closing in on $1 million that we've raised for Bailey's Day for children's cancer. And you were there, Nigel. It's the experience to be in that room and knowing that you have 300 people in this room that all really care about bringing an end to children's cancer, and the results that they've been able to accomplish with the funds over the years has just been amazing. It's such a gratifying thing to be able to donate my time and my miles and my money to this one event, because it means so much to Patrick. I'd spend the $500,000 again, just the chance to bring this $1 million to children's cancer.
We end the podcast talking about emotional intelligence. Your methodology, to me, involves emotional intelligence, understanding the person across from you, understanding how the interaction is impacting them, understanding how they're feeling, and then using how they're feeling to direct their decision making. Am I spot on there?
Okay, I don't know if that's the term. I do know this. I do know that everything, I thought I left the car business as good as I could get. And I found out I left the car business as bad as I could get, didn't know the difference. I literally found out that it was my mission to think like a salesperson instead of sound like one or talk like one. That it was my mission to change the industry where we're helping customers buy rather than trying to sell them. Where if we make it all about the customer, and actually the same thing about making it all about your wife, making it all about your kids, making it all about your friends. When you put the other person first, just good things happen.
I'm hoping that this was a value-added conversation, because often everyone gravitates towards the flying. But I think your life and how you try to show up is inspirational to me. Your kindness. I'm grateful that now that you've landed for your 23 million mile checkup, Tom has grounded himself for a month so that he can see all the doctors and make sure that he gets a clean bill of health so he can keep flying. But just a good testament to who he is. One of his friends, Greg, flew to New Jersey today just to hang out and have dinner with him, someone who he's met flying. Tom, before we go, if you look back over your life, what are those words? What are those things from your life, how you see the world, that you say would be those jewels that's worth imparting to someone else?
I recommend everybody to become an opportunist, not just the opportunities they have in front of them. And there's all kinds of opportunities, whether it's business or friendships or whatever, but the opportunities they can imagine to be true, they can be. And one last thing, Nigel, a personal note to give to your listeners. Nigel's not just been a friend, he's been a very good friend. And over the last couple of years, he has been my life coach. I've learned so much from him, and I've become a much better version of myself because of Nigel. So thank you, buddy.
By the way, I did not pay Tom to say that. I will not pay Tom for saying.
No, this is a freebie. This is a freebie. Yeah.
But I appreciate you, Tom, and I thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me. Thank you for letting me be part of the journey. I get to have a seat sometimes next to you, sometimes hearing about it. I appreciate you, Tom, and look forward to the next part of this journey for you. Thank you, brother.
I can't wait till our next trip.
Yeah, absolutely. So much to this episode. A few things that stayed with me. There's lessons in failure if you don't give up. Also, the world is huge, so much to experience. If you can be open-minded and curious. Also, rather than try to sell someone something, help them buy it. But the most powerful for me was be an opportunist. So fully embrace that possibility mindset. Sometimes it's just stepping a little bit outside your comfort zone. Thinking back or looking back, reflecting on meeting Tom, this all came from me just choosing to say hi to my neighbor one morning. So how you engage with the world really does matter. There's so much opportunities in how you choose to, if you choose to, engage with the world and those around you. I appreciate you listening to this episode. If you find value in what you've heard today, please like and share it. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's anything that I can do to be of service. Nigel@meinchelp.com or Nigel Franklin Way on Instagram. Thank you for your mental energy. Thank you for listening. And until we meet again in this space, take good care.